everybody. Thanks for being with us today. Jesus changes everything, and I'm here with Brianna Wright. Brianna is on staff here at FBC Branson in our kids ministry as one of our kids directors, and just want to take a moment and let Brianna share a little bit of her story and who she is and what she's passionate about. And so, Brianna, would you just tell us a little bit of your story and what Jesus has done in your life?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in New Jersey to a non-Christian family, and so a lot of my life growing up, I was just doing whatever kids were doing, just having fun and just living for the next day. And I guess a little background about my family. None of them were Christians. I grew up with an older sister and a younger brother, and didn't have a ton of extended family, and a lot of them were struggling with different sins in life and escapes that they were using to just get out of the reality of life and try to fix things the best that they knew how. And so it caused a lot of strains in relationships and a lot of hardship growing up. And there was a lot of days where I felt like I didn't really have a lot of people to talk to about things, because everyone was kind of dealing with their own messes in their own ways. And so, growing up, I secluded a lot of time to my room. I didn't have very many friends, and I was just trying to figure out what the point of life was. And I spent a lot of nights just in tears and scared, mostly of death, because I had no hope in anything, and I was just so scared of what death was going to be. Like, why am I here and born just to die and just be over? And so, a lot of my childhood I just spent in fear and feeling hopeless for just what the point of this world was. And so I tried for years and years through elementary school, middle school, to fill those voids and those fears with things that were tangible around me, whether they were relationships or sports and different activities. I tried to stay away from home as much as possible and just kept busy so I didn't have time to think about anything. And so that's a lot of my childhood. It's just a lot of wonder and questioning what this world was for, what the point of life was.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Existential stuff that a lot of people deal with. Why am I here? What is my purpose?
Yeah.
Is there any hope for me? Is there a point to all of this? Mm-hmm. And so what happened next?
So when I was in 8th grade during spring break, we decided to move within a week. I found out I was moving. My grandmother was moving out of her house, and we decided we were going to buy it and move in. And so this changed our weekend plans. We no longer camped on the weekends, which is something we did growing up. And so that kind of opened up our schedules in a different way. And so my parents started hanging out with different friends than they did before. And at one point, these friends wanted to go hang out with my parents, and they had younger kids that were in elementary school still, and they didn't have a babysitter. And they happened to drive by a church one day, and they said, "Oh, we saw a sign on this church says they have free childcare, children's ministry." And so one Wednesday night, our parents loaded us in the car and dropped us off at this church, and I was greeted by this really tall former football player of a guy. He was huge and scary, but he had one of the most caring, most compassionate people I've met. And in that point in my life, I was just really craving to feel loved by someone, and just really have someone who cares about how I feel and what was going on in my life, and it's just someone to talk to. So he and his wife just...
Is he a youth pastor?
Yeah, so he was a youth pastor. So he and his wife kind of accepted me in that night, and I sat around and talked to his wife. And I wasn't sure what I was doing there. I couldn't keep up with anything he was talking about during his lesson time, but I just saw that he was super passionate about what he was sharing, and he seemed in love with this thing that I couldn't even see. And so it stirred up a yearning in my heart to keep coming and wonder why this huge guy is so kind and compassionate about some God that I couldn't even see. And so
their passion for God and for the gospel was contagious.
Yeah. And so I went back the next week, and I kept going back. And then eventually his wife saw that I liked to sing, and she invited me to join the girls' choir. but the catch was they sang on Sundays, and so I had to go to church on Sunday for the first time. And after that, I started getting, full in, and I was super excited about everything. And so I was singing in the choir, and I was going to church on Sunday and Sunday school afterwards. And I just started to be interested in just getting church multiple times a week. And so my mom had to bring me because I couldn't drive yet. I was 16 at this point, the end of my freshman year of high school. And so I was going to church now, and I was starting to hear the gospel. And at this point, the youth group, I still didn't really have any friends. There was a lot of cliques, and so I felt like an outcast still. And I was trying so hard to hold on to the few friends I had in school, and also try to make church friends and make everyone happy. And so in that time of trying to figure out how to fit in, we started to have a transition, and we went to a youth retreat in January of 2012, where the speakers, they tried really hard not to, I can't think of the word, but they didn't want to offend anyone. And so they were trying really hard to step on the ground softly. And my youth pastor, at the end of each time, he would come and talk to us and say, the gospel is hard because it makes you look at your life and what you're doing and what you're living for. And so it shouldn't be something that's non-offensive. I should be scared about the way I was living. And so after he was just passionately reminding us that each night, and then they shared the gospel using an illustration of a receipt. And just you go to a restaurant, you can't afford what you're getting, and someone comes and pays for it, and you owe them nothing in return. That kind of was the point where it all clicked. And I was like, oh, this makes sense to me. I've lived all these years hopeless and trying to figure out what the point of life was, and I couldn't find a way on my own. But then this Jesus that they were telling me about, he already had a plan, and God had a plan from the start for my life before I even knew who he was. And so, at that point, I accepted Christ. And from there on forward, my life completely changed.
And you were all in with the gospel, with following Jesus, and with being plugged into the church from that point on. As a teenager, and through your college years and beyond, you're just living for the Lord and living for serving him in the church.
And so my life afterwards was nothing I could have imagined. I was studying to be a teacher, and after that failed a few times because I couldn't afford to continue school, I took some time off, and I talked to a friend who was a Christian who went to Bible school. And at this point, I was serving in the kids ministry, I was serving on the worship team, in the youth ministry, I was running soundboards, I was just anywhere I could, I served. But I was just so excited to serve and do things, and she's like, why don't you do this full time? You can see that God's gifted you in this way, and you have a heart for it. And so, but that was hard for me because I only have my mom, who was a Christian at the time, and so to reroute all my plans and turn it all towards, studying to work in a church, no one really understood that. Because it's not the way to make the most money, it's not the way to set up for success in this world. And so it was hard at first to commit to it, and so I applied for Bible college, and I didn't tell anybody until I got accepted, and I told my parents that I was moving to go to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. And
Moody Bible Institute.
Yes, and so it was from there that I really took ownership of my own faith. Before then, I was still trying to battle two lives and try to fit in with my family and the world, but also I was so excited about church and passionate about it, and that's what I really wanted. But I'm a people pleaser, so I was trying to make everyone happy with my choices. And so, when I went away to school, I finally was put in a place where I had no one to depend on except for Jesus. And so it just really helped me to, just look at my life and figure out what my purpose was and what I'm living for. And so I started studying children's ministry and getting involved anywhere and stepping out of my comfort zone and letting just Jesus lead me and work wherever he had me. And so eventually brought me to here in full-time ministry. And so it's just really cool to see how he kind of rerouted all my plans and how I was going to live for myself and what was easiest for me. And I took the harder route, but it was exactly where he wanted me. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, we're so excited to have you on our staff and on our team and in our church family and serving the families of our church. And I know that a lot of our families with kids are enjoying getting to know you as well. And so how long have you been on staff now?
Since September, so I think it's going on 10 months.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we love you and we're thankful for you, grateful for what Jesus has done in your life. And so thank you for taking time to share that with us today. Church, Jesus changes everything, so let's give him our all.